Hi guys, my name's Seb, and in this video I'm going to run you through an AI agent that I've built within N18. This agent automatically scrapes Apollo.io from basic criteria that you give the agent through a text or audio message within Telegram. So if that sounds like something you'll be interested in, then be sure to stick around. So to start this AI agent, all we have to do is send a message through on Telegram. So I'm going to do that right now. Hi, can you scrape creative agencies in the USA, UK, and Australia? I only want you to scrape verified emails, and I want these companies to be mid-sized companies between 1 and 200 employees. I only want you to scrape the decision makers of these companies, so things like the CEO, founder, vice president, president, co-founder, etc. Be sure to add any more decision making roles within companies that you think will be relevant in this case, and I only want to scrape 500 leads. Thanks. So now what's going to happen is on the back end, N18 with this AI agent here is going to go ahead and scrape Appify with the Apollo.io lead scraper. And if we head into Appify here and we go over to runs, we can see that this scrape here is automatically running. Uh, the AI agent has created a, if we go into the input, a request URL to Apollo that it's going to scrape. So if we copy this URL over, we can have a look at what exactly the agent is scraping. If we go on here, we can see the exact search query that the agent is now scraping with Appify. So we can see here email status is verified. We've got the job titles, the CEO, all of these decision makers that we said for it to use. There are the locations there, 1 to 200 employees, graphic designing industry. So this is super cool. And now if we head back into Appify, we go into log. Here we go. We can see it's already scraped 3 pages. I said 500 leads. So far it's scraped 300 or 200 it says here, but it's a little bit slow in transferring the data into the output section of Appify. And if we head back into N18, this agent is still running. So it takes a little while to scrape, but then once you've got all this data and we format it nicely within a Google Sheet, then there's a lot of things you can do with it. For example, you could plug this directly into the fully personalized cold email system that I created a few days ago within N18, and then use these leads and all this information to plug it directly into that system that automatically generates fully personalized cold emails. So it should be done any second now. Let's have a look in Appify. It's on page 5 now. It should be done any second. And there we go. Successfully finished with 500 records. So now what it's going to do is get all that data and format it nicely into a Google Sheet. So if we head over to this Google Sheet here is all that data from people in the creative agency space. One thing to note is it did say graphic design in industries, and that's because it's the most relevant keyword or industry keyword that it could find in accordance to creative agencies. Because if you do search in creative agencies here, there are no industries for that. So it's selected a relevant industry that kind of is around or based off of the creative agencies industry, which is pretty cool. And then here we go. We can see what data do we actually have here. We have the first name, last name, website, LinkedIn, email, organization, LinkedIn, country, personal LinkedIn, headline, organization name, title, organization founded year. If you've watched my previous video with the Apollo.io scraper, you'll see that this data is almost exactly the same as that. And that's because we're using the exact same scraper for that, because this scraper is just, it's amazing. And now what we can do, you can do lots of things once you have this formatted data, which is pretty cool. So now what we're going to do is let's build this thing out. So first off, what we'll want to do is connect Telegram. So if you hit the first step, trigger oh, not trigger, sorry, Telegram. And then we'll go on message. And then you'll need to connect your Telegram account if you haven't already. And the way you do that is, I'm actually going to run this through with you. So what you'll need to do is head over to Telegram, create an account if you haven't already, and you'll need to add the bot father as a friend or a user on Telegram. And then what you'll need to do is you'll need to do / new bot once you're friends with the bot father. And then we'll have to create a new bot. So the best leads scraping bot in the world bot. Now choose a username for the bot. We're going to do the same. It's invalid. The best leads scraper in the world bot. There we go. And then once you've got a valid username, sometimes it takes a while because you cannot have the same username for a bot as someone else. But once you've created a bot, it'll give you some information here. Really what we're interested in at the moment is use this token to access the HTTP API. So if you copy this token over and then you head into the Telegram trigger, you go here, create new credential, and then in the access token, paste that token directly in there, and then click save. There we go, connection tested successfully. And now what this is going to do is it's going to watch for chat messages to be submitted to the bot we have just created. So it says here you can find the bot at this URL or link. So let's click start there, and we can test this trigger, make sure it all works by clicking test workflow, clicking on it, and let's see. There we go. It said text / start. That was the message / start. So that's all great and going as expected. Now what we want to do is make sure that this agent can handle both audio and text messages. So what we want to do is go in if, and do we have audio in here? We don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an audio message very quickly so that I can get a dynamic variable with the audio message. So I'm going to go, this is a test. Just do that. Let's hit run. Let's run this again. Connect it into the if. And now you can see here it has voice and a voice object. So now what I'm going to do is drag this into the top value. If this voice object, so when you go down to object exists, then it's going to go down the true path. But if it doesn't exist, i.e. it's a chat or text message, it will go down the false path. So now what we can do is go up the audio path first. And what I'm going to do is transcribe this message. So how you do that is go to Telegram again, and then you'll want to search for get a file. And then the file ID will be outputted from this node here, but to get the file ID, we need to run this entire scenario or workflow again. So let's just do this. Test, false. That's correct because that wasn't an audio message. Let's click in here. And the file ID down in the Telegram trigger. Where's the file ID? The file ID, it needs to be an audio message. Silly me. Let's make it an audio message. This is a test. Let's run this again. On Mac, you can click Command Enter or Command Return, and the workflow will automatically run without you having to click Test Workflow. Not sure what it is on Windows. And then if we head down to voice here, in Telegram, we have a file ID. right here under the voice object file ID. Drag and drop that in here. And now this voice audio message will be downloaded. So if we run this, we go, Seb is the coolest person in the world. Let's run this. How do we have to do that? Seb is the double coolest person in the world. Here we go. Now we get this little data object here that we can now feed into ChatGPT to transcribe, or the AI model of your choice. I'm going to use ChatGPT in my case. So I'm going to search up OpenAI, and then I'm going to go down to transcribe a recording. And then this can all be left the same, and now it should transcribe. What? Is there an error? It's not. Okay. Let's run this. Go back here. Seb is the coolest person in the world. I'm the coolest person in the world. And there we go. Seb is the coolest person in the world. So now what we can do is I'm going to test with the text part of this. So I'm going to go hi. And now it should go down the false path because this is not an audio message. That is good. Now what I'm going to do is set this message. Where's the message? It should be hi. Let's go back here. There we go. Name that in there. We're going to name this just text. The reason we name it text is so both of these paths output is the same, which is important for when we feed it into the AI agent. So let's rename this set message get file transcribe message. Okay, so now what we want to do is I'm going to merge both of these paths back together before feeding the message into the AI agent. So we go add node, and we're going to go merge and leave that the same, and merge these two paths into this merge node. Now we're getting into where the fun starts to happen with the AI agent. So we can search an agent here, AI agent. Now what we're going to do is go define below. This is the prompt or user message, and I'm actually going to copy the message over from here because it's a pretty large message. You guys will have access to this message as well. As you can see there, it's a pretty long message. So I'm going to paste this directly into here. And basically what's happening in this prompt here is it's getting the text message that we've sent through Telegram. We define its role, and then I've provided an example URL from what an Apollo search URL should look like. So the way I've gotten this URL is if you go into Apollo and you define a search like this, this URL has been directly copied from this link up here. And then I've pasted it into here as an example for ChatGPT to reference when creating its own URL based off the information that we provided through Telegram. And I've got a hashtag note. This is the organization industry part. I'm going to go into this a little later. Defining industries within a search URL isn't super straightforward, so I'm going to go over that in a second. This one particular, staffing recruitment, again, I'll go over that again. This user, the user also mentioned how many leads they want. This should not be put into the search URL. This is for another JSON parameter. And yeah, just a bunch of different information to define what the AI agent should be doing. And I'm also going to provide a system message. You are helpful, intelligent assistant. I cannot spell intelligent. How do you spell intelligent? Intelligent. There we go. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is add a chat model. You can add any one of these chat models, but I'm going to add OpenAI, GPT-4 Mini, add options. I'm going to leave this all as it is. And we're not going to add memory, but we are going to add a tool. And this tool is going to be first a Google Sheet. And then I'm going to use this Google Sheet. So I'm just going to copy this name. I'm going to go over what this Google Sheet does in a second. Okay. And I'm going to name this Get Industry IDs. So when defining an industry within an Apollo search URL, if I actually head into a new Apollo search, let's just go here, let's go login. If I head into a new Apollo search, I might have to delete all of these manually. I will, let's remove all of them, remove all these, just so the URL at the top is blank. So you can see by default here, I'm not sure if I can zoom in. Cannot. But you can see by default here at the top, this is what the URL looks like when there is no search parameters within this people search. But then when you add an industry, let's say accounting, you can see this organization industry tag IDs has been added for this industry accounting. So this industry organization industry tag ID was added for the keyword or industry accounting. And then if we do the same, if we remove accounting and instead we want to add animation, this new organization tag ID has been attached to the URL. So now this one is for anime. Was it anime? Animation. So each industry has their own unique organization tag ID. So you cannot just feed a industry into the AI agent without it knowing what ID is in correlation with that industry that you have mentioned. So what we have to do is we have to create a database with all of these IDs and their corresponding industry for the AI agent to reference when creating the search URL to scrape Polo. I hope this makes sense. So what I've done here is I've created some for the staffing and recruiting industry. They have this unique ID. For the graphic and design industry, they have this unique ID. Agriculture, this one. Legal services, this one. Law practice, this one. And these have all just been gathered from me selecting an industry here, like I did before, agriculture, and copying the organization tag ID from here and pasting it into here, and then naming agriculture. So that's just what I did there. And then what the AI agent will do, it'll reference these organization IDs and their corresponding industries, and then use that to make the industry that it's going to target within the search URL. So then heading back to NA10, by adding this Google Sheet here, I've added this Google Sheet. The AI agent is going to read this Google Sheet to make an informed decision on what industry it should do based on the request from the user in Telegram. Okay, and now the last thing that we need to do for this AI agent is add an HTTP request. This is going to request the agent, not the agent, the scraper, the actor in Apify. It's the Apollo scraper, scrape up to 500k, muddling up my words today. 50,000 leads. So if you're new to the Apify, you go Apify store. You can just search in Apollo, and then Apollo scraper, scrape up to 50,000 leads. That's the one we're looking for. Click on that, and then you'll be taken to this page. Now what we need to do once we're in this page is we need to get the API endpoint to call this scraper to scrape the URL that the agent has created. So if you go ahead and click on API up here, API endpoints, and the API endpoint we're looking for is run actor synchronously. And if you copy this one and paste it into here, this request URL will automatically start the scraper. And now I'm going to add a description to tell the agent when to request this. This tool is used for when the user wants to scrape any leads or companies. That should be good. And heading back into Apify, I believe we'll need some JSON. So if you go from manual to JSON and copy over this entire JSON structure here, and then go down to send body using fields below. We're going to switch this to using JSON below and paste that JSON in there. Then what we want to do is delete this URL, this request URL. You can see it's an Apollo one, but we don't want to use this one. We want this to be dynamic. So if you delete that and then create curly braces, this is just basically telling the AI agent this is something we want you to fill in. So then we're going to go request URL goes here. One thing I noticed isn't there is the limit on leads that we want. So I'm going to go back here, and in total number of records required, I'm just going to name that to 500 for now. Head back to the JSON and I might copy this entire thing over. Delete this all again. Delete this request URL, curly braces, request URL goes here. And then in this curly braces, amount of leads scraped goes here. Okay. Now in the curly braces, we've told the agent where we want it to put its dynamic parameters. We've got get personal emails true, get work emails true. I'm just going to leave that as true and not dynamic. And this should all work as expected. So I think we're going to test this now to make sure that the scraper and also so that the so that the industry works. Organization. So let's run this using that command enter again. So let's test this out. I want you to scrape, let's see, law firms from the USA, the UK, and Australia. I only want you to scrape verified emails, and I want these companies to have anywhere between 1 and 200 employees. I also only want you to scrape the decision makers of these companies, so things like the CEOs, the founders, the co-founders, the vice presidents, etc. Be sure to add any more roles that you think would suit the relevancy of this industry. And I only want to scrape 500 leads. Thanks. So now what it's going to go, and it should, function name. Okay, so I figured out the issue. It seemed that when I just deleted and re-added the tool, the problem solved itself. So I'm not sure what happened there, but the Google and the AI agent now works. Something was wrong with the Google Sheets tool, but now it's fixed. So let's run it through. Let's give an example. I'm going to do legal agencies and see what happens. I want you to scrape legal agencies from the USA, the UK, and Australia. I only want these emails that you scrape to be verified. I want these agencies to have anywhere between 1 and 100 employees. I only want you to scrape the decision makers, so people like the CEO, founder, co-founder, president. Be sure to add any more decision makers that you think will be relevant in this situation, and I only want to scrape 500 leads. Thanks. You run this. There we go. It's transcribing the message. It's running the agent, fetching the Google Sheet for the different industries. And now it should pick up the most relevant industry. I said legal agencies, I believe. So hopefully it picks up legal services and or law practice. So let's go in here. It's running. It's now scraping. Let's head into Apify. Head into the running one. Go into input. And I'm going to double check this URL by pasting it into here, deleting the quote at the end, and also the part, this URL section at the start, as it's not part of the URL. Paste this into Apollo. Let's see what industry it took. Legal services and law practice. So that's perfect. 1 to 100 employees, all of the locations, even added more job titles. Not only the ones I said, managing partner, senior partner, verified emails. So this is done all automatically by the agent, which is pretty cool. If we go back to the scraper, so far it's scraped 200. Let's just allow this to run out. Everything is running perfectly at the moment, which is great. I mean, it really is pretty cool what you can do from just, what was that, a 10-second message, a 30-second message of just mentioning and talking verbally, what do you want to scrape? And then it automatically goes out and it scrapes it for you, which is pretty cool. What are we at now? We're at 400, 5 pages scrapes now. This should be the last page. And then after this, what we're going to do is take these results and put them into a Google Sheet. From there, you can do some pretty cool things. I've already forgotten if I mentioned it, but my earlier video, you could feed all these results into another one of my cold email systems to create a fully personalized cold email for each lead, which is pretty cool. And then even beyond that, you could feed those emails automatically into Instantly. So you could have a full hands-off cold email system, which is pretty neat. So now this all ran successfully. If we go back in here, export 500 results, successfully fetched 500 of the total results. If we go into output, we can see all of this data that we can now use. All this data, organization, LinkedIn, their personal LinkedIn somewhere, their website, personal LinkedIn, and yeah, all this data, which is pretty cool. Now, if we head back in here, what we're going to do is we need to get this data because this doesn't return any data. If we click on the AI agent, it only returns the request URL that it used. And now we need to get that data from the scraper. So what we're going to do is head into another HTTP request. And what we're going to do is do a get. And if we head back into Apify, go up and head back to the scraper homepage. And if you go to API endpoints again, I believe it should be in here. If we get list of active versions, get list of builds, get list of runs, get last run. That's what we want. So we want to get the last run of this actor. So if you copy that over, head back into N18, paste that URL into here. What this is going to do is it's going to get the last run. So because I don't want this entire flow to run and for the scraper to run each time, what I'm going to do is drag this HTTP request up here, delete this connection here, and connect it directly into here, just so that I don't have to run through this entire process each time I want to test this individual step. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to pin this data so I don't have to continue adding a message in Telegram. And then I'm going to run this and we can test whether this endpoint works. data ID. And really, the only thing this is going to return is a dataset ID, default dataset ID, which we can see right there. And we're going to use this default dataset ID to get all of the data. So if we go, I forgot what the endpoint was called. Excuse me. Appify. Oops. Get dataset items endpoint API. Okay, so we can see the URL is actually directly here. So I'm actually going to go back because I saw the URL. The URL is here. So if I copy that over, add a new HTTP request. This is also going to be a get method and paste that URL in here. Looks a little like that. And then what we need to do is replace this dataset ID with the default dataset ID retrieved from the previous node. So if we find the default dataset ID right here, and we'll need to drag and drop that into this URL, but first I'm going to change this to an expression, drag this between the two slashes, so it looks like that. And now I don't think we'll need any authorizations or authentication, so I'm just going to run this and see what happens. Yep, 500 items. And we should be able to confirm whether this is the correct run we'll actually be able to confirm by going into runs and Appify, clicking on the results here, going to the output, and making sure the first piece of data is the same as this one here. Let's go in here. So I'm looking for is Perth. Or actually, no, what I want to look for is the company name. Just to make sure it's correct. Even the name, Errol. Is this Errol? Errol. It is Errol. Errol Vertanis. Good old Errol. Yeah. Cool. So this has gone the last run for that scraper or actor, what they call it in Appify, which is perfect. And now what we can do is I'm actually going to continue to keep this plugged in here, is add a Google Sheets node and go append a row in the Google Sheet. And then I'm going to duplicate this Google Sheet. Actually, I should be able to put it directly into this Google Sheet. So if we go to the bottom, to 500 here, we should see data be populated within here. So if we go back into here, I search an agent, agent lead scraped, sheet 1, and then we populate all this data with all of the dynamic variables from the previous node that's retrieving the data scraped from Appify. We've got title down here. We've got email. Where's the email? Email. Headline. What else have we got? We don't need employment history. Country. Name. Country. Organization LinkedIn URL. It's company one. Their personal LinkedIn URL. The company website. This is undefined. It's unusual. Hmm. Okay, doesn't work there. Okay, I'm not sure what happens here. I might just leave it and see what happens. Because I'm not sure why that would happen. An organization founded, yeah. Also undefined. Let's see if this founded, yeah. Which is the same value. It still says undefined. Okay, let's just see what happens. Let's run this. Make sure this runs correctly. So what was error? It said organization founded, yeah, was undefined, but it looks like it's here. And then it also said website was undefined. But the website is also here. It must have said undefined because this specific lead didn't have a website. That's the only thing I can think of as to why that wasn't there. But you can see now we have around 1,000 leads in here, nicely scraped and put into the skill sheet. Well, it was an additional 500 from what was already in here. And then you can imagine now that you have this data, you could scrape their LinkedIn profiles as well to gather some more data and feed that into a cold email sequence with an instantly or smart lead. You can really personalize the hell out of your cold outreach using all this data gathered from Apify. The scraper, it's really cheap. It's $1.20 per 1,000 leads, so it's incredibly cheap really to scrape. And then the ease of using this from just a not search URL, a text message or audio message with a Telegram is pretty cool. With this, you can just search an audio message. Search in an audio message. My words are not good today. And then yeah, flick through a chat message and you've got a full list of leads. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun building it out. It almost surprised me because I've tried this in the past, trying to create an agent that automatically creates a URL to search a polo, but I could never really figure out a way to get a valid URL. But now that you can get a valid URL using the system, it's really, really cool. You know how you can do all this. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and yeah, we'll see you in the next one.